Hi, I'm Jen Coursey with THRIVEtoday, and today I want to talk to you about how our brains process pain and what that means as we help our kids try to navigate the upsets and difficulties of life. So our brain has 5 levels that it has to process pain through in order for things to be resolved. And it starts at the bottom and goes up to the top and over. And if our brain successfully processes through all 5 of those levels, then our brain files it away as resolved, and it's not going to create a pain point later in our lives. However, if we get stuck somewhere along the way, that can actually be a little bit traumatic for us, or it can create a pain point later in life that won't go away until we resolve it. So our goal as parents would be to help our kids navigate those pain pathways so that they don't have those pain points later in life. While the brain processes from the bottom up, when we're looking for the solution that's needed, we start from the top down, because at the top, at level 5, the solutions are just easier starting there, and they get harder as they go down. So at level 5, what's needed is more information. And this is where we need to be able to tell a story about what happened, and we might be missing some information. So for instance, my son comes to me and really wants to play with his brother, and I say, no, you can't until you finish the job I asked you to do. And he says, but Mommy, I don't know what you asked me to do. I don't remember. What am I supposed to do? I say, well, you need to clean your room, and then you can play with your brother. Oh, okay, I'll go clean my room, and then I can play with my brother. And the problem is solved because he just needed more information. Unfortunately, that is only one of the 5 solutions that we need, but information is what we're sort of taught to give our kids regardless of what the problem is. And so that's something we have to kind of unlearn a little bit, because level 5 is the only place information alone takes care of the problem. As we go deeper in the brain at level 4, what we need is an example. So for instance, my son might be building a model car and he gets stuck on a step and he's not sure how to do the next step. At that point, he needs me or Chris to step in and help him and show him how we do this. And once he's had that example, he might even be able to do it without our help next time. When it comes to emotions, perhaps the problem is he and his brother are arguing and his brother's being mean to him and he just doesn't know how to handle it. He's just so upset because his brother's being mean to him. And at that point, we can tell emotional picture stories about how we've handled it in the past and how it's like us as a family or as God's people to act. This is a place where I also like to bring Emmanuel into it, because there are times when my kids, what they're navigating, I actually am not quite sure how we should navigate it. And so having Jesus's example can really help. In truth, Jesus's example can help at any of these levels, but I especially find it helpful at this level. As we go deeper in the brain, we get to level 3. And level 3 is where we need to be able to share the feeling with somebody else. Perhaps the feeling is just too big. So I'm too mad, too scared, too hopeless, too ashamed to be able to recover on my own. So I need somebody to join me in it and share it with me. And this is where the validation and comfort really comes in handy and is really helpful. I have a number of blogs, by the way, at thrivetoday.org on the validation and comfort, as well as the Emmanuel process and what it looks like to bring Jesus into this process. So those are some great examples there. So level 3, we need to be able to share the pain with our child. So they're really scared about something, and so we meet them in that and share that fear with them. Or for instance, they scrape their knee and they're hurt and say, oh buddy, that looks like it really hurt. What do we need when we're hurt like this? Oh, a Band-Aid? Okay, well, let's get a Band-Aid. That'll help. And then we can continue processing up through the levels, and it becomes a non-pain point in our memory, and we can file it away. Level 2 is where it gets harder. It's subcortical, which means it's below having words about this. And so this is where what we might call irrational fears come from. Fear of heights, fear of elevators, fear of flying, fear of water, those kind of things. Because it's where our fight, flight, or freeze response comes in. And this is a place where we are tempted to say, oh, you're not going to fall. I know we're high up, but you're going to be fine. But if you've ever tried that, you might notice that it really doesn't do anything to help. This is the place where we need help quieting. And so it could also be that something is just so upsetting that we need to quiet before we can share it with somebody else. So for instance, my son was choking over the summer and he couldn't breathe and we had to use the Heimlich. And when he could breathe again, he was just kind of shaking and crying and scared. And before I could even share that feeling with him, I needed to help him quiet. So I just held him and we breathed deeply together and we just calmed down to the point where then I could share it with him at level 3. And then we could talk about how we handle it when we're this upset. And we brought Jesus into it. Where was Jesus? And Jesus, we need some of your peace right now. And then we were able to tell a coherent story about what happened. And again, that what could have been a traumatic point for him is something that he was able to fully process. When we get deeper in the brain at level 1, it gets even more complex because this is where attachment pain comes in. And this is where the only thing that fixes it is the person that we're wanting, the person that we need. So for a baby where mommy is the only one we'll do. I don't want daddy. I don't want grandma. I just want mommy. And if I can't have mommy, I'm just going to keep crying. Or when Chris was recently gone to Korea, the boys and I were missing him. And we were really kind of grumpy and all on edge. And we talked about the fact that we were actually missing daddy, and we were feeling sad about that. And we really wished he could get back. And we were able to share that together and just grieve that a little bit that he was gone, and then quiet together. We read some books together, and then we were able to be a little bit sad together. And then we were able to talk about how we like to handle it when we're sad. Well, we can write daddy notes or draw him some pictures or make a video for him. And then we were able to tell a story about it. So that processed all the way. And thankfully, Chris was coming back in a week. Now this gets even trickier again if it's a permanent loss. So grandma passes away, or hopefully not, but sometimes happens, the parent passes away and there's a permanent rupture, a permanent missing. And this is where we really need to grieve that loss, and we need to be with them in that grief. And we can then help them quiet and share the sadness and talk about how it's like us to be when we're feeling this sad and missing somebody, and then be able to tell a story about it. But you can expect that that one's not going to be one and done. It's going to come back over and over, because the pain of grief like that is something that's going to have to be revisited over and over, and we're going to hopefully process all the way through again each time. And as adults, this is also where relationship ruptures, divorce, death, those kind of things, why they hurt so much, because that person that we're wanting to be with isn't there, and yet we don't necessarily even have words to describe it. We're not even aware that that's what's going on. We just might be grumpier or sad, or notice that our cravings are high. Like, I just really want ice cream tonight, or I really want to go shopping, or I really want some chocolate, or I really want a glass of wine, those kind of things. Attachment pain, we often don't recognize it except through the side effects of it. So that's something to keep an eye on with your kids too. My kids weren't saying I miss daddy. They were just grumpier and everybody was on edge. So hopefully this has given you a helpful picture of how our brain processes pain, how our kids' brains process pain, and how we can help them get unstuck if they get stuck at one of these spots. For more information, check out Carl Lehman's articles at emmanuelapproach.com. Also, THRIVEtoday.org. We have the Year 3 online course, the Strategic Solutions. We go in depth into the 5 levels of pain and the brain, and how it works at each level, and what we need and how to recognize it. And then we have a whole week-long training of Thrive. Year 3, track 3 of Thrive is identifying these things. So hopefully this is helpful, and you can take advantage of more resources if you want more information.